This is Santiago from Strawberry Ink. I am going to inform you that throughout the episode you may hear noises in the background. So today I will be discussing a difficult topic, a sex predator who was involved in a homicide. He was a police officer in Ohio for the Columbus Police Department, also known as the Columbus Division of Police or CPD. Living in Ohio, I could tell you that I really don't like the CPD. They are such a bad police department. Their mayor, Andrew Ginfer, is one of the worst mayors I've ever experienced. Me and my family tried to report a sex predator to the police, and the case is still delayed. I can't stand the detective tied to the case. I really don't like CPD, they make me uncomfortable. It's raided by sex predators and racist cops committing police brutality, running foul investigations, and randomly killing those of color. So today I am happy to call them out for the first time in this podcast. Andrew Mitchell was an undercover officer for the Columbus Police Department. He had worked many roles in the department since the 80s, some of them being detective jobs. In 2018, he had completed 30 years of service as a police officer. Despite such a long career, it would soon come to an end, leaving him with a bad reputation. Mitchell had received several complaints regarding sexual misconduct. It looks like he would arrest solicitors, sex workers, prostitutes, whatever you call it, and instead of taking them to the police station, he would make them perform sexual acts on him in order to be released. That was their penalty. Mitchell's penalty went against the country's constitution, which prohibits any cruel or unusual punishment. On August 23, 2018, Andrew Mitchell had been working overtime and helping arrest suspects from investigations that were not assigned to him. One of those suspects was a sex worker named Donna Castleberry, who was 23 years old and had a heroin addiction, which was the reason why she was desperate to make money that way. Donna was with a friend at the time in the inner city area of Columbus, Ohio. Deputy Andrew Mitchell approached her in his undercover vehicle and confronted her. He placed Donna under arrest and tried handcuffing her. Donna immediately recognized Mitchell and refused to get in his car. She resisted arrest and pulled out a knife. She started screaming for help and stabbed Mitchell's hand. Mitchell then shot Donna Castleberry. She died at the scene. Her friend witnessed it all. Mitchell had filmed the incident with the camera in his police vehicle. He called for medical assistance. Both Mitchell and Donna were taken to the hospital. Donna was already dead. Her family was contacted and claimed her body. Her funeral was held in the city's Woodyard Funeral Home, both the service and visitation. On the other hand, Mitchell was released from the hospital 3 days after the shooting. This shooting was investigated by the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. They came into conclusion that the Columbus, Ohio Police Department had been letting Deputy Andrew Mitchell prey on suspects wanted for misdemeanors. Mitchell was suspended and criminally investigated. He agreed to be interrogated by detectives and denied doing anything sexual with anybody he arrested. Mitchell also claimed that he shot Donna Castleberry in self-defense because she tried to kill him with a knife. No arrest was made right after this interrogation in the Franklin County Sheriff's Office's headquarters. He shortly after retired. Weeks later, the Castleberry family consulted with the Ohio Bar Association in order to rule against CPD. They sued them for wrongful death. This lawsuit that several attorneys filed on behalf of the Castleberry family targeted the Columbus Police Department, their chief Kim Jacobs, and Deputy Andrew Mitchell. The suit accused Mitchell of causing Donna Castleberry's death by attempting to do sexual things with her in exchange for her freedom. It accused Chief Jacobs of allowing Mitchell to continue working in the police department despite receiving several complaints of sexual misconduct. Lastly, the Columbus Police Department, otherwise known as CPD, was accused of allowing this sexual misconduct to occur in the department. However, with Castleberry's death, Mitchell really had to quit his job. He went many months without being charged with any crime, but later on, Mitchell was tied to both a federal criminal probe and a state criminal probe. In March 2018, when dropping off his daughter at her daycare and returning to his Sunbury, Ohio home, the FBI confronted and arrested Andrew Mitchell. By this point, he had already retired. There had been an arrest warrant filed by the Southern District of Ohio's U.S. Attorney's Office, who were ready to start prosecuting the case. At this point, no charges had been filed yet, so Andrew Mitchell was meanwhile placed in the Correction Center of Northwestern Ohio. Both the state and federal cases were presented to grand juries. The state case at the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas, and the federal case at Columbus, Ohio's federal court. In the state case, he was indicted on charges of murder and first-degree voluntary manslaughter for Donna Castleberry's death. Then in the federal case, he was indicted on charges of depriving individuals of their civil rights while acting under the color of law. The federal indictment only accused him of preying on 2 women, even though there were 5 victims in this criminal probe and many more accusers. Mitchell was shortly after charged with additional crimes for covering up evidence in the federal investigation and lying to FBI agents. These additional charges were all filed as federal crimes. They included 2 counts of witness tampering, 1 count of obstruction of justice, and 1 count of making false statements to federal agents. After these criminal charges were filed, Mitchell was transferred over to Ohio's Franklin County Jail. He pleaded not guilty to the state charges related to Donna Castleberry's death and was granted a $1 million bail. If Mitchell posted this bail, he would have been on house arrest. However, he had been required to remain in custody until a judge in his other federal case granted him permission to be freed. A detention hearing at the federal court streets away was then held, and Mitchell was officially ordered to remain in jail until his 2 criminal trials were over. Days later, he pleaded not guilty to the federal charges as well. Mitchell was eventually moved to the state's Butler County Jail, where many federal inmates awaiting trial are held. The public was hoping for Andrew Mitchell to be charged with rape and sexual assault as well, for the way he treated the women he had arrested. However, there was not enough probable cause to charge him for those fiends, but there was some evidence to sue him only for one of the accusers. Shortly after Mitchell's arraignment, Ohio civil attorney David Goldstein filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of this one anonymous accuser as a rape allegation. The lawsuit claimed that in 2 occasions, Mitchell raped, sexually assaulted, and made vulgar comments to this woman whom he had been arresting. It also claimed that after the sexual acts, Mitchell ordered her to get out of the car without giving her time to put her clothes back on, and in one occasion, he had pushed her off the car naked, causing her to fall on the ground and bleed. In 2020, the city of Columbus agreed to settle the wrongful death lawsuit against their police department, its chief, and Andrew Mitchell himself. However, it wasn't a full settlement. The city only paid the Castleberry family $1 million when they had been seeking $3 million. About 2 years later, the murder trial of Andrew Mitchell started. He was brought back to the Franklin County Jail in order to not have to travel many miles to get to the state court during his trial. The case had been delayed for several months due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It took almost 3 days to select a jury for this trial. After the jury was selected, they were taken to the location where Donna Castleberry was shot in order to observe the crime scene. The prosecution had claimed that Andrew Mitchell had kidnapped Donna Castleberry, was preying on her, and then killed her as she tried to defend herself. On the other hand, Mitchell's defense claimed that he was allowed to arrest Donna Castleberry and shoot her in a form of self-defense. Several witnesses described what they experienced or encountered while and after the incident occurred. The audio recording of the shooting was shown. Nothing gruesome could be seen, but Donna Castleberry could be heard screaming for help before a set of loud gunshots that shocked the whole courtroom. After all the witnesses spoke, Andrew Mitchell testified on his behalf and claimed that when Donna Castleberry pulled out a knife at him, he thought he was going to die. After this trial's closing arguments, the jury started their process of deciding whether Mitchell was guilty or not. However, after deliberating for several hours, the case ended in a mistrial due to the jury being unable to decide on a verdict. It wasn't over yet. The prosecution later decided that they would retry the case another time. Franklin County District Judge David Young, who was presiding over the case, sent Mitchell back to the Butler County Jail until the second trial was held. Months later, Andrew Mitchell's rape lawsuit was settled outside of court, without any details about it being made public. Then in 2023, he was retried for the state crimes, this time with a different jury. The case was presented to a 12-person jury once again, and Mitchell was acquitted. The jury believed that he killed Donna Castleberry for his own safety, leading to a verdict of not guilty. He then returned to his previous facility, the Butler County Jail, and remained there due to the federal charges he was still facing. Due to overwhelming evidence against him in that case, he sought a plea bargain. After rejecting the first bargain, he got another one that better suited him. The bargain was accepted and Mitchell pleaded guilty to the federal crimes. On May 9, 2024, his sentencing was held in Columbus, Ohio's federal courthouse. The prosecution described how cruel his crime was and the big abuse of power that Mitchell was responsible for. They requested that the court impose a maximum sentence on him. The defense acknowledged that Mitchell put his fellow officers down and affected their reputation. They also claimed that he had been jailed for nearly 5 years, being in a cell most of the day, unable to see the outside world due to the foggy window within it. The Butler County Jail also had very few mental health and physical health resources. It was mentioned that Mitchell had diabetes, which had worsened in jail, and that he was under rough conditions. However, he was the most well-behaved detainee in the facility and was described as a role model inmate. The defense asked for a prison sentence of 7 years, the lowest he could receive from this plea bargain. A letter was read from one of the victims. She described her story. Her dream was to become a Red Cross nurse, but at 18 years old, she lost her scholarship money to go to college because her boyfriend spent it to feed his drug addiction. She then had no support from her family and started working as a sex worker for money. She claimed that Andrew Mitchell could have helped her when he arrested her, but instead he pressured her into sex, and then very disrespectfully ditched her in the streets. The victim also described that this was one of the worst days of her life. She asked in the letter, "When you were 13, did you consider being a police officer to help people?" Mitchell then spoke in court, telling the judge how sorry he was for his actions. He spoke about his mother having just celebrated her birthday, and how he wanted to spend her last days with her because he knew she wouldn't last forever. Mitchell as well acknowledged that he left his wife raising his daughter by herself for nearly 5 years. He claimed that it broke his heart that his 8-year-old daughter told one of her school counselors that she has almost no memories with her dad, and that growing up just with a mom had been rough. Mitchell ended his testimony by stating to the judge, "Have a blessed day." Despite the victims having committed misdemeanors for their sex work, they were acknowledged, and a sentence would be imposed. United States District Judge Edmund Sargis, who was appointed by President Bill Clinton, sentenced Mitchell to 11 years in prison. After the sentencing, he was taken back to the Butler County Jail for the time being. Mitchell was then placed in Oklahoma City's Federal Transfer Center, where inmates are evaluated until the system is ready to officially assign them to a federal prison. He was assigned to the federal prison in Massachusetts, where he currently is, the FMC Devens. This facility is an inmate medical center and minimum security satellite camp, meaning that this is both a hospital and work center for federal prisoners. Due to Mitchell having spent 5 years behind bars while awaiting trial, he gets jail credit and only has to complete 6 more years in this prison. Thank you for listening, and please share this podcast to someone you know who may be interested in true crime. Don't forget to follow the podcast and like this episode for more content. Till next time, goodbye.